rebuilding confidence, and harmonizing with nature. With over 4 decades of changing lives, your self-discovery archaeologist, get ready to be the best of you with your host, Beverly Zymet.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Beverly Zymet Show, where being the best you has just gotten easier. My guest today is Rebeca Montaner. Did I get that?
Montaner. But you can also, I think it's easiest for people when they say Montaner, but I don't like it because it sounds like container.
It sounded like to me was Montana, right?
Yeah. So, but Montaner is the right way, but it's kind of like, it's challenging, I know.
Montaner. So what nationality is that?
So I'm from Venezuela.
Oh, okay.
The name is Spaniard. I have a, I'm kind of like a mutt.
You're a Heinz 57?
Exactly. Exactly. Italian, Spaniard, Incan. Yeah, like everything except for Chinese, I think.
Oh, well, my gosh. I mean, what did you forget that for, you know? Right?
Exactly.
Are you racist, right?
Eventually we'll blend it in, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, well then that'll count. You only got one more blend to go, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
So you're calling in from Georgia?
Yes, Atlanta. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so how did you end up from Venezuela to Atlanta?
Well, short answer is my parents brought me here after actually I was threatened to be kidnapped.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, my parents, my dad was a very successful businessman over there, had a styrofoam factory, and we lived in sort of like a smallish town, not like super small, but kind of. So everybody knew everybody's business, without you having to be flashy or anything, right?
Right.
So then, yeah, I mean, he got a phone call that basically they knew where I went to school and what classes I took after school and everything. And so they just kind of decided to come over. And that's the short version, let me tell you. There's longer, but
Oh, I'm sure. That happens anywhere. And it's interesting that you say, they knew every move that you were making because of a small town. I grew up in a farming community back in Iowa. And it's like everybody knew the next move that you were going to make before you made it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I love about those towns, I mean, mine was also agricultural. And what I love growing up there is that even if you sort of had money, you never, like, we would spend our time like in maybe somebody's farm, like it was still very down to earth and very like, I wasn't even aware that we had quote unquote money until later.
Right.
Because yeah, everybody just kind of put the money more on efficient things instead of like the flashy like Prada or whatever things.
Right.
So.
Yeah, it's and it's interesting how things that as a child that we don't see or interpret or whatever and have no connection with, so it's totally non-relevant, and all of a sudden, and then as you grow older and stuff, so why did we move here? And then you find the backstory and you're like, oh my gosh, right?
Yeah,
but
they kept it from me so that I wouldn't be scared.
Oh, sure.
And so, but there was 2 people at the factory that I got along with a lot. Like whenever I would go over, like they would play with me and whatever. And all of a sudden, I started noticing, like, and again, I was a kid, so I didn't put it together, but I started noticing that they were like at my school. So basically my parents kind of like had them sort of be a little bit like bodyguards. They weren't this big, rough people, but they were just kind of like there to make sure nothing was happening to me. And whenever I asked, like, they would be like, oh yeah, he's just doing an errand or whatever. Like they just kind of like downplayed it. And it wasn't until, again, we moved here and my mom was telling the story to someone else that I guess like she didn't notice that I was listening.
Right.
That's when I was like, oh wow, all of that happened. I had no clue.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Well, at least your parents were up on that and then took action,
mhm,
right?
mhm.
Before something did happen. And, well, welcome to the great United States. Sometimes the way things are
Thank you.
looking right now. But
It's
again, this too
interesting
shall
time.
pass, right? It is
Yeah,
interesting times. It
yeah.
is. It is. So, your parents still in the same business here?
No, they sold everything and moved here. And right now, my mom owns a interpreting company,
Okay.
and my dad, he's kind of like a little bit retired. He does forex. I don't know if you know
Yes,
what
I'm
that is.
familiar with Forex. Yes.
So, but he used to be an electric engineer, and so when he moved here and sold everything, he basically sort of became that again.
Sure.
You know.
Sure. So
Hmm.
you grew up in a family of entrepreneurship, shall we say? So what is it
Oh,
that
it goes
you
way back.
do?
It goes way, way back. Well, that is actually part of definitely the reason why I started this because basically I come from a long line of business owners, and usually from some sort of uh, happenstance. You know, like with my grandpa, it was World War Two, and then with my dad, like also kind of like having to move here. Like there's different stories, but I focus mainly on sort of like the women in my family,
Hmm.
and for my mom, she's brilliant, but she actually studied to be a biologist, and because those sort of jobs were actually more here in the US, she kind of had to choose between her career and sort of us, like her
Right.
family. Um, and she chose her family. And because of that, I, being the firstborn, she never blamed me, but like I felt a little guilty.
Sure.
Um, and basically, my business is a digital business that allows, or I actually coach women, men too, but I focus mainly on women because of my story, uh, to launch or grow or manage their business digitally. I have run a successful digital marketing agency for the past like 3 years, I believe. And I have learned so much. And I come from sort of like the non techie, non graphic designer sort of background,
Right.
which made it all interesting, but at the same time, way worth it because I feel like I understand the client way more, you know?
Right.
Uh, and that's basically sort of, I still have that business going on and it's super successful, thank goodness, even in these times, because again it's digital, so it's nothing like my everyday
Right.
hasn't really changed.
Right.
But because of this coronavirus, I have sort of made it my vision of doing this transition of teaching others how to do the same, you know.
And
um,
that's good because again, it goes back into the theme of why we're here, being that better you and getting creative. So when you say because you've been in the digital world, and
mhm.
there's a lot of people who really they knew it existed, but they didn't really exist in it, shall we say?
Mhm.
They existed around it, and all of a sudden they're thrown into a position where you either jump on the boat or you drown, right? And
Yeah,
yeah,
that's again how this whole thing started, because I had a lot of my just close friends that, I don't know if it happens to you, but when you're in sort of like the entrepreneur vibe, you tend to have a lot of entrepreneur friends.
yes, you do.
And so they started asking me, so how do you do this, and how do you manage your team, and how do you do like so many different things that for me, again, because I've done it for years, it's my normal. And I decided, well, so my husband actually, he's in the medical field, so I know how serious it is, right? And I see it every day. So I felt like I needed to do something, like something that would actually bring a solution instead of panic in these times.
Oh,
And
exactly.
so that's why I started doing the coaching and started doing this. Like, I'm actually usually very camera shy. Like, I don't know if that comes across, but I'm usually like sort of very comfortable being behind the scenes,
Right.
um but this is sort of like the best way to get your message out,
It
and
is.
impact as many people as possible.
It is.
um
And you know,
so
it's interesting when you talk about your side of it and my side of it. It's like, for me, being in front of the camera is just a natural, right?
oh,
And you know,
lucky you.
I've been in the face of the camera since I was 7, and that was a long time ago, honey.
Wow.
You weren't even a thought, you know. But you know, still, it's different as we grow up, you know, and now into the digital aspect of it. And you know, so for me to do my show and build it into professional things, you know, I've worked in studios. I had my own studio, you know, and so you got all these little things that you got to do behind the scenes, you know, as you say, that most people don't think about. And because it's been so habitual for me, you know, I don't think about it either. And then the demand come out there because everybody is vying for time on
Mm-hmm.
social media. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like, well, how can I help out there, right? So how can
Yeah.
we set you apart from?
Yeah.
And so I started put together, you know, it's like, hey, do you want to be professional out there, to get your brand out there, to get yourself out there, to get the world to know what you have? Because if you look like everybody else out there, right,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to get lost in the crowd.
Yeah.
But if you just take it, it really doesn't take any more to run a professional show as it does to just push the button for a live. It really doesn't. But it sets you apart
Yeah.
because now they begin to recognize you, like you say, with a brand. That becomes your brand. So I
Mm-hmm.
decided I put together a program to help beginners, help entrepreneurs start to be professional out there. Whether you've done this before and been in the face of the camera, now it's time to move up and step it up into that next place, right? And so when I
That's awesome.
started putting this together and started writing out the different modules, what I was going to do, things that are automatic to me and just are second nature, you don't think about, all of a sudden I'm looking at every single move that I make prior
Yeah.
to a show getting going, after the show, and during the show. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's like this like this 10-mile
Exactly.
list, you know. And it's not anything difficult, but it's just this checklist and what to do and what not to do. And if I hadn't followed those, and again, a lot of them, you know, you learn from trial and error. Well, you know,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you don't have to learn from trial and error. We can learn from the expertise who has got it down, but can break it down into those steps so that something doesn't fall through the cracks. I was like totally blown away. And I think if you would probably do that, maybe you already have, is to look at every little thing behind the scenes and
it's
then bring
it's
yourself into the face. Wow.
it's super, and that's actually what I have loved about it. So when I started to put myself out there, and it started with just kind of simple Q&A, like
Right.
ask me anything. um it sort of allowed me to realize how much I've grown, like sometimes when you don't put it down on paper,
Right.
you don't realize, sort of like, oh yeah, I mean, I can help with this. Like that's actually how it grew. And then
Right.
when after like a lot of these questions and answers and people were so thankful, etc., I also sort of felt sort of confident enough within me to teach others,
Right.
because what happened to me with what you're saying is that I did so many steps, but for me they were now sort of normal,
Yeah. Yeah.
that it's not until you teach others that you realize, wow,
All
yeah,
the different things that go into it, because you know it was is one or two things at a time. It become repetition, then you grabbed a few more and that become repetitious, you know. And you're running on autopilot, but you don't realize, like you said, when you move, you step into that teaching aspect, It's
Mhm.
way different. And seriously, you can't miss those steps, because if you do, it doesn't
Yeah.
run smooth,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so being a teacher versus just sharing what you know is two different things.
Mhm.
And for
But I'm sure
me,
it happens to you, like when you teach, and this is kind of what has made me fall in love with this, is that kind of like the aha moment,
uh-huh,
you know, of like sometimes obviously there's in any learning curve, there's a little bit of the struggle, but then when everything kind of like clicks and it's like, oh, that is what I'm supposed to do. And this is like, oh, this is amazing and whatever. Like
right.
that moment, I live for that moment, you know?
Oh, and that's what makes it personal, makes
Mm-hmm.
it real for you, and makes it unique for you. So basically, the things that I teach, and probably the same things that you teach, regardless of what it is, when you put it out there in that step by step program, then you can start bringing your own personal creativity into it. You can put a little different twist on it, but the steps are the same. It's just like climbing up the stairs to the the state building or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's say you
Mm-hmm.
got 100 stairs or something, because there's a lot of places out there where there's a lot of stairs, right?
Yeah,
So you're climbing up these stairs, right? Every single one of them steps gets you closer to the ultimate outcome.
exactly.
If you skip any of those stairs, what's going to happen? You're going to get knocked back down to the one that you missed, and then you got to pick it up from there again. So don't think that you can just jump over it and it's going to make it okay. It doesn't.
No, and the
That's why
thing
those
that
stairs are
tends
there.
to happen when you don't do it with a coach or someone, it tends to actually take you not only longer, but it costs you way more money because
Oh
you
gosh.
basically you're
Yeah.
doing the trial and error. Whereas if you have a coach, you at least, even if you want to improve upon that, because there's always people that are kind of like, I still want to do it my way.
Yeah.
um, but if you learn from someone, you at least start from that baseline, and then you can start being creative and do
Right.
all your
Yeah,
own
the
thing.
basics never change. The basics
Hmm.
never change. It's kind of like um, the anonymouses, right? Like AA, right? They have
Hmm.
a 12-step program.
Yes.
And you follow that 12-step program to the
Yeah.
T.
Yeah.
And it will get you from point A to point B the fastest, most unique way.
Yeah.
But if you start jumping over here and jumping over there, it's like it doesn't work. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
So, and how many of you open up a package and here's your instruction paper? Eh, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Guilty. Guilty.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
You know, why do you think that's in there? Do you
Yeah.
think maybe the person that created it knew that if you don't put this bolt and screw in here first and you try to stick that on there, this isn't going to fit, and then you're going to have to take that part back off to put this part back on, right?
Yeah.
And it's no different than in any kind of program that you do. And
Mhm.
and that's why you know putting together a show, there's so much that goes on behind the scenes. It's not difficult,
Mhm.
but it's the missing pieces that are necessary to make it all run. I'm sure our audience out here knows what a funnel is. If you guys know what a funnel is, or you don't know what a funnel is, comment below here. It runs smoothly. So if you're doing a capture page, right, or a sales page, and then it goes to the next page, and then it goes to the pay page, and then it goes to the bank. If there's any of those little dweeps in there that don't work, from the capture of the sales page to the outcome of your bank account, it's not going to make it there,
Yeah.
right? So you
Yeah.
have to look at it. You have to look at it from that point. You're starting here at ground zero,
Mhm.
and you're headed to the payoff. For you to collect at the payoff, all of these steps have to be connected and working in unison to make it
Mhm.
work, right? So everything is that way. Starts with a base, ends with a payoff. Don't miss the steps in between, or the payoff doesn't reach what it's supposed to. Right? Have you found that in your business to be true? And when you're working with someone coaching and they want to just all of a sudden take off and run this direction and you're saying, come back in, right?
Well, I'm a pro at that. Let me tell you. So I invested, and I still am investing in a lot of coaches, and I'm super impatient with myself,
Uh-huh.
So I kind of want to get to knowing it sort of like right away, you know? And that's actually why I feel like I can understand a lot of my clients that sort of like, no, like I just need to do a post, for example, and I'm like, okay, but what sort of post and whatever, like I can sort of can relate,
Right.
of wanting to have that payoff right away. But like you say, I mean, there's no shortcuts, the
No.
only shortcut that you can do is it's, and this has been like this forever in all of humanity, it's just finding a teacher,
Right.
and then actually listening.
Yeah, listen and follow through, right? Listening is one thing, following through is another. And I think that's a key element in everything that we do because we get so busy being busy. We think we know it all, right? And do you ever find yourself doing this and then watching your clients do this where they think they know what you're going to say next, right?
Yes.
And then all of a sudden they're telling you what you're going to be saying and doing, and you're like, were you really listening to what I said, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, reel you back in. And, and again, coaches need coaches, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes we get ahead of the game for ourselves, especially if we're over creative, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we reach out for everything that is so like out here in space. This is where I am. I mean, I'm out for the big picture. I'm out here in space, and if I see something that's way over there and it looks intriguing, I'm going to go for it, right? And the thing is, it's like, wait a minute. You're on the wrong spaceship. That one's taking you this way. We got to bring you back this direction, right?
Yeah.
And so and that's what my coaches help me do, right? When I share with them, well, what I'm reaching for out here, they're saying, great, we're going to put that here. Now we're going to reel you back to right now, and now we're going to figure out how we're going to get you there in the fastest, easiest, most productive way. Okay, then I have to take a deep breath and have this patience sometimes that I don't have, right? And it's like, okay, you're right. Because I have been down that road where you're not going to tell me what to do because I know better, right? And it's, oh my gosh, it has cost me so much.
Or you honestly believe that so for example, I'm just now with a coach, and there was a app that I have used it before, right? So I honestly thought I knew how to use it,
Right.
But then we started doing like other things, and for me it was more like I wanted to focus on the things that I really didn't know and have more time on those. But then, like everything, right? Like the moral of the story, I realized, oh, there's actually way more things that you could do with this original one that I just wasn't aware.
Right.
So yeah, definitely. And the key thing about keeping having other coaches as a coach yourself is that you, especially in these sort of industry, like anything digital, anything technology, anything like that, then it basically, like you need to keep up with it because everything is kind of constantly changing.
Oh my gosh, just look at Zoom. Oh, holy cow. I mean, last week was definitely a technical Zoom week for me. Oh my gosh. And then I found out today that they're changing things, that now I think they're only going to give you like 7 days on a link, right? And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, is this link going to work today when my client calls in? Is my live going to go? Are they going to be able to get in? Oh, it's just, crazy stuff like that. Yeah. But again, it's changing when you look at the different platforms because they're always adding additional new things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, like you said, when you think you know a program or an app, all of a sudden they've had upgrades and maybe you haven't upgraded or you haven't looked into the upgrades, and it's like now you're scrambling over here to try to find a piece that's missing when all along it's right here in front of your face, just because you didn't let someone say, hey, have you seen the new things in here?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's always better to just sort of play as if you don't know. And there might be obviously things that are review.
Right.
Um, but there's always little things that if you, and again, like I'm a culprit of this, you know, if you basically just sort of think, okay, I know that, let's move on, then you actually might be the one missing out, you know?
Right. Yeah, as soon as you start saying, I know that, I know, I got this, that should be your first red flag warning. Say, wait, here we got something, pay
Mm-hmm.
attention.
Mm-hmm.
Do you really know it? Maybe you think you knew it from past time. This is
Yeah.
now time, and there's an upgrade. So we need to upgrade and update ourselves all the time.
Mm-hmm.
This brain needs to upload the new stuff, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's why I try to focus on things that are kind of like that you can actually apply for yourself
Mm-hmm.
as we go, because I don't know if it happens to you also. There's a lot of people that actually buy whatever program and then they actually don't watch it or don't do it, you
Right.
know.
Oh yeah,
So
there's tons of courses out there, right? And how many I know personally I've got several courses that I got into, and I just I couldn't keep up with what they were saying because it was so irrelevant, too much blah blah blah. So if nothing else, what has helped me, listening to other people's courses and stuff, it's like, let's get past the fluff. Let's get to the meat and potatoes. Because again, we're all vying for time, and time is something you can never get back, right? Time is something that has to be recognized with. Well, so what we've been talking about so far in this conversation was basically the stair steps to business, right? The stair steps to life, actually, right? And putting all those pieces together to run smoothly. And we've all had hiccups in our life, right? You shared a little bit of your story earlier, and every one of us has a story.
yeah.
How we got from point A to point B. And that's what makes us who we are, right? And it's the same thing that makes your business successful or maybe not so successful. And again, when you look at what's going on in the world today and in crises, right? Millionaires are made out of crises.
Oh,
right?
yes.
So businesses fail and businesses survive.
Yeah, actually, that's one of the things that I listen a lot to Tony Robbins and different ones, but there was a Tony Robbins podcast that actually said that 67% of the top like companies in the world
Mhm.
have actually been born from the winter, what he calls,
Right,
which is
right.
basically downturns. Um, and if you think about it, this is really what sort of separates the real entrepreneurs
Right.
with the people that
Wannabes.
kind of, yeah,
Yeah.
because you need a lot of mental and emotional strength for these times,
Well, you
and
do, and again, it is about that mindset. It goes into the belief of where you are now. We're moving into over 4 weeks here, and when you look at the psyche and how the role that it plays, and people need people, right? And
Mhm,
it's not just being in your closed little area where you are,
mhm,
right? So the psyche starts playing, especially if you've been a socialite and you've been out in the world, so to speak, or whatever, and all of a sudden you're limited, you're in closed spaces, right?
Mhm.
And it's
Mhm.
almost like everybody's telling you what to do and when to do it and how often to do it and where to do it and how, all of these things. And it's been almost in a threatening way,
Yeah.
right? Because it's all built on fear base. If you don't, this is your result. Do
Yeah.
this or you die.
Yeah.
Because those are the words that we hear, right? And
Yeah.
so that
My
mindset.
my response to that, and I have a little bit of a unique situation with my husband being in the medical field. But I actually just stopped watching any sort of news
Right.
because I realized, and this actually comes from Marie Foglio, which is another coach of mine. So I realized that that information, even though obviously it's good to be in the know, it's nothing that it's actually gonna be productive for me, you know? Like
Exactly.
keeping up with that is really just gonna make me more worried, and I won't be able to do much about that, you know?
You can't change it.
Um,
That's it. Change the things you can, and the things that you can't, take caution and keep moving.
yeah.
Right?
So that's what I kind of invite the people, and kind of part of my message is stop focusing on the panic
Right?
and find whatever training, whatever coaching, whatever program, whatever thing. And again, like I love that you have one as well, because like that means that your tribe is the sort of people that love to just sort of keep on learning and keep improving themselves.
Right.
If you within this time frame, let it be, if let's say you got laid off, or let it be you have a business that used to be very physical, you needed to actually be there, instead of the panic of like, oh my god, what am I going to do, if you have whatever program, whatever training, at the end of this you're at least going to be yourself plus whatever it is,
Right.
you know, plus the training, plus the new skill, plus the new business, plus my new brand, plus, you know, and this hopefully, you know, like will be time that won't sort of be spent so slowly.
Right.
if you're
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
if you're focused on something that's productive, I don't know if like for me it hasn't stopped, because like thank goodness, like I pivoted, and I have like a lot of clients, and I'm seeing the progress and I'm loving it, and so my day to day again hasn't really changed.
Right.
um but I feel like that is the most destructive thing. If you stop, if you basically give in to the fear and give in to the sort of victimhood mentality of like, you know, this happened to me, and
Right.
you know, what can I do? There's a lot you can do.
But there
um
is, and it's getting into that creative brain. And again, look at your business. How long you've been doing it, whether it's a short time or a long time. How can you improve that? Okay, so here's an opportunity. This is a huge opportunity to where if your business was being comfortable, maybe starting to get a little stagnant. What
mhm,
can you do to move it out of that phase and
exactly.
into the next phase? What in your business isn't really functioning, say 100%, right?
Exactly.
And move that out of the way and look at what's functioning, and then what can you fuel it with to give it that rocket boost, right? In the circumstances of what's here, rather than saying, "Oh man, I'm going down," and all this stuff. Well, if you keep saying that, what
Mhm.
the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. What you focus on is what you gain.
Mhm.
All these sayings aren't just idle sayings, they've
Mhm.
been proven facts, right?
Yeah.
Henry Ford said the best. I just love this statement. If you think you're right, you're
Mhm.
right. But if you
Mhm.
think you're wrong, you're still right.
Yeah.
Okay?
Mhm.
So there you have it in a nutshell, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, so it's an interesting world we live in, and again, it's given us an opportunity to step back and start to look and come out of where can we go and be better, not only with ourselves, but in our community, in
Exactly.
our nation, and in the world. because this isn't just something that's happening next door.
Yeah.
It's happening all over the planet. So coming together, we're all one. It really is a small world, right?
Yeah.
We impact more than what we think we do, right?
Yeah, this whole situation, I I kind of see it a little bit as this guy's gift, not to again downplay the seriousness and all of the health situation, but it's sort of like a pause button. When do we
Right.
ever get that? You know?
Especially at this percentage wise, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's time to really, like, exactly like you said, is reassess, you know? Like I have a lot of, from the agency side, I have a lot of clients that are basically, finally I have the time to do my website. Finally I have the time to do my rebranding. Like, so on that end, I'm super happy and excited that basically, I don't know, like I'm kind of like the clients that I have that haven't been able to finish whatever stuff because of just having to keep up with their business.
Right.
um they're keeping me busy on that end, but it's more with the coaching. What I've noticed is the biggest hurdle is just kind of turning that switch from victim, like this happened, I
Right.
got laid off, I got whatever, to okay, I believe in my project, I believe in myself, I believe enough to invest on it, because that's something else that I learned with coaches that is super important. um if you don't invest on it, it's basically that little rocket that you were saying
Hmm.
won't get turned on. It's more of
Exactly.
a
It's not going to get
hobby.
off the launching pad, is it?
No, it's gonna be. It's
Right.
like, oh, it would be good if I do that, but it's not a necessity. It's not all of a sudden like,
Right.
yes, I need to do this, and I need to recoup my investment, and I need to, like, take it seriously.
That's a good
So,
word. What you said, seriously, right?
mhm,
So investing in yourself is important, but if you don't take yourself serious,
mhm,
no one else is going to make you take you serious either. And I think this is where a lot of entrepreneurs, especially women that have
mhm,
families and spouses, right? That the support maybe necessarily isn't there
mhm,
because it's responded to as a hobby when it's a business. So it has to get across to the other people concerned that, hey, this is my business. Just because I'm doing it from home
mhm,
doesn't make it any less a business. This is my passion and my commitment. I need for you, spouse, I need for you, kids, to take me serious because I'm serious. But if you don't express that, sometimes it's a conflict and you don't know how to say it.
that is
So,
key, how to say it. Because
yeah.
like one of my clients were actually, because again, with my coaching, I just kind of like coach whatever people want. Honestly, it's not just the business, it's not just the digital, because the mindset is so important. We go
Right.
deeper, you know.
Right.
So this lady, I could tell by the way that she spoke, you know, uh that basically in her mindset, and this is a chip that we as women have been given, and it's something that we need to take out. um Basically, she was like, oh, but I don't know if I'll be able to find the time to do X, Y, and Z, because my husband is helping me by washing the dishes, or my kids are helping me by whatever. And I'm like, hold on, wait a second. Do they not eat? Like, what do you mean they are helping you? It's whomever is available. Like, it's
Right.
not
Right.
when all of a sudden, like, that was a given thing. It's
Right.
not a set thing that is our responsibilities as women to do the cooking and the cleaning. That's not like officially your job,
Yeah.
you know?
Yes. We've had
Um,
that separation, right? So, oh, that's woman's work and that's man's work. My
yeah.
son was, I think he was right around 12,
Hmm.
right? And I asked him to do something. I don't know if it was dishes or something, right? And he goes, I'm not doing that. That's woman's work. Whoa, did he say that to the wrong person?
Yes. But
Woo!
I'm so like I'm so glad that there's women like you know, that correct it. Because a lot of us, and this happened to me as well, you know, with little things, you don't realize it because it's so normal that you're
Right.
numb to it, you know?
Yeah.
Like growing up, and this is something that you know, like I've said, and it's nothing, again, my family, I don't think it's any sort of machista or any sort of like anything out of the norm. But I remember, like, with my guy cousins, they would get dirty and whatever, and they wouldn't get in trouble. But for the women, we had to play the same game and somehow be impeccable, you know?
Right. Right.
Like, it's just little things that you don't realize, but they just become part of your, like, oh, I'm supposed to do this. I'm
Yeah.
not supposed to do that.
I grew up on a farm, and there was 11 of us kids, okay, and I'm second oldest, okay?
Oh, that's fun.
And, so we, as the girls, right, there was 6 girls and 4 boys. We were outside in the fields. We were baling hay. We were planting. We were cultivating. We were doing all of that, right? But then, when it was time to come inside, we still had to do the dishes. We still had to hang clothes, right? Wash the laundry. We had to scrub floors and all this stuff. And it's like, well, wait a minute. How come the boys don't have to do that? So we have to go out there and be in the field, but they don't have to be here in the house. Something in this picture was a little messed up, right?
Yeah. And that is sort of the transition that, at least, like, I've kind of, obviously, like, I'm not going to say that I've experienced all of it, but watching movies and etc., like, I have seen how women were sort of, you don't get to do any of it, you know, like, except for housework, to this transition period that I feel like maybe that's kind of what you might have experienced, because I feel like that's what my mom experienced, is that all of a sudden, okay, fine, you can work, but as long as you do everything else,
Right.
you know,
Right.
as long as you don't disregard your duty of this other stuff. So all of a sudden you had to be everything. And it's now very recently, and I see this within my generation and my sisters, that we kind of step back and we're like, hold on, how come I'm doing everything? You know?
Yeah. Well,
Like,
later in life, when I got into this, into the work that I do now, in the emotional healing work and in the past and all these things, and started understanding the workings of the brain. Well, my dad came from a big family, right? There was 12 of them, and there was only one girl. So the boys had to do the cooking, the cleaning, the laundry, and all that kind of stuff, right? Well, my dad told himself when he was growing up that when I have my kids, my boys, they're not going to do woman's work, right? Okay, so that was why the boys didn't have to do anything in the house. But however, we as girls still had to be out in the field and doing that. So again, it's our perspective on things, and it's how we're raised, and again, the stories that we tell ourselves, right?
Yeah.
I can remember one thing as a bicycle, and I've told this story before. I always wanted to have a brand new bike, right? We had one bike amongst everybody, right? And it was one that Dad had picked up at a farm sale or something. You learned how to do the mechanics of it over and over because, and so you took turns on this bike. So now I have my own kids, and they were at that bicycle riding age and everything, right? So I decided one Christmas I was going to get them all a brand new bike, because it's like, wow. So I'm living my dream vicariously through them. And you know what? I have 3, and all 3 of them could care less about having a new bike. To them, that wasn't something that was relevant or important. And that was one of them aha moments that you spoke about. That was a wake up for me. It's like, whoa, I am trying to live what I didn't have vicariously through my children, giving them what would have made me happy. I need to listen to what it is that they're asking for, not what I think they want or should need to fulfill my past wants.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And I don't know, now getting a little more personal, but um, my mom, because of what she had to do, and let me give you maybe a little more of a backstory. So she got an internship with the Food and Drug Administration. She was like that good, from Venezuela, which again is kind of unheard of to kind of handpick people from different countries. And anyway, she was one of them. And after the internship, they basically offered her like the visa, a house, a car, like everything, like basically just everything's good to go. But at that point, my dad had already started the factory and was super successful. And at that point, also, my country wasn't that bad. And so they kind of wanted to live there, right? So
Right.
fine. She gave up that dream. Um, then with me, I hate science and I hate blood and I hate all that has to do with all of that, you know? But she, because of what happened, like she always kind of like pushed me towards trying to be like a doctor. Like she wanted that,
Right.
to the point that, I actually in middle school, because this was like from when I opened my eyes, like she always wanted me to be a doctor. But in middle school, I remember I did this sort of on purpose. I took this like elective class that was half medicine and half astrology, which I have no clue why they mixed those together,
Yeah,
but
that's
whatever.
kind of unusual, but okay.
Yeah. Um, so I took that class, and so I basically, and I'm usually like a straight A, B is like my worst,
Right.
and I purposely flunked that class, to basically just send a message like, I hate this,
I
like,
am not gonna play with blood when I grow up, right?
no, no. And then she actually kind of like got the message. But yeah, it's that, and that's part of my mission. Like, I feel like if we teach parents, regardless of gender, honestly, at this point, but parents to go after what they actually really want to do,
Right.
then there won't be this sort of burden on their kids. Because even if, again, my mom never blamed me, she never, I'm sure she never meant in any sort of nothing, but kids observe, and I knew
Right. And
she
then,
wasn't happy.
well, when there's not an open line of communication, as
Hmm.
a kid, we take just the information of database that we have and that we've observed, and we turn it into this, and we start holding ourselves responsible for different choices that our parents made when it had no clue, nothing to do about it, but we build those false truths within ourselves, and that's kind of what starts that motion going to where we get messed up as an adult, right?
Hmm.
And so it's going back, and that's one of the key things that I work with people is getting back into the nuts and bolts of that. And it sounds like that's kind of what you do with your clients, is to, where did that start, where did that build, and start to delete those things, right? And
Yeah.
sometimes it doesn't taste good, sometimes it doesn't feel good, it doesn't look pretty, but it needs to be dumped and out of the way for your
Mhm.
successes and for you to really understand what it is that you want, right?
Exactly. And let it fuel you, because like there are things that I like, also I've been lucky enough, like let me now say the positive. My parents throughout my life, they were the ones that kind of did the Tony Robbins, and I just kind of like tagged along, like those multiple people like that, just kind of personal development. And because of that, I have been very sort of self-analytical.
Mm-hmm.
uh, and I see, for example, in this case, that is a little bit of like a childhood trauma in a way, but for me, that is what fuels me. So
Right.
for me, that is like actually like I turn a negative into a positive. And for me, like that is kind of like, how do I put this? It's not something that I want to fix because if I stop kind of like feeling this sort of hunger of like,
Right.
you know, helping other parents not have to choose. and starting with myself, like that's why I started Seven Digital, you know, the agency. And that's why I'm never, this is on purpose, like I'm never gonna have an official office, because I made it and I built it so that when I have kids, I'm not even pregnant, nothing, you know.
Right.
But when I have kids, I'll have a successful business, I'll have the team that runs it. I know that I can run it from my house or wherever we move,
Exactly.
wherever we go, whatever trip we do, whatever, without having to give up, you know, on the other.
Exactly. Exactly. What do you have to give up on one side to gain on the other side and stuff? And that's total freedom. And to be able to start that and do that now, and it's it's very interesting. After my kids were all grown, I mean, I kind of did the same thing, right? You kind of have to do it a little bit differently when the kids are already there, right? But you get creative and you build on that and you build on that. And once the kids were, growing, they're out of school now, they got lives of their own and everything. One of my biggest dreams was to travel. And we traveled a lot, even when the kids were little. We were always going somewhere. Okay? And then now it was all my time. It's like, okay, in 97, I jumped in an RV and I've never looked back. Never looked
Wow.
back, right? And, so my kids have no clue where I'm in. They come, where you at, Mom? "Oh, where'd you land now?" Right? So they're used to that,
Yeah.
and it doesn't matter how old you are, where that dream is, and how you fulfill it. And a lot of people look at me, I'm 70, okay? I travel with me, myself, and I go
Mm-hmm.
wherever I want to go, whenever I want to go, however I want to go, as long as I want to go, and I
Yeah.
just go,
Yeah.
right?
No, that's the best.
And so it's a freedom, and I
Yeah.
think we need to build that early in life. And my kids did learn that. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, wait a minute, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel really blessed that my kids turned out the way they did, because I divorced when they were 8, 9, and 10, and we left farm country, moved to the big metropolis of Denver, Colorado. So go from a farm to Denver. Whoop, that was a big, huge step in '79, right?
Yeah.
But again, it's giving them the option and being open. And this is what I think we forget as parents sometimes, is to let the kids know what's going on. I mean, your parents moved you from Venezuela to
Mm-hmm.
the United States. That's
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah.
That's culture differencing, I mean,
Yeah.
to at its finest, right?
Yeah.
So how do you adjust with that? But it's knowing and being true with the kids. And it's like, you know what? These are the choices that were made. This is what
Mm-hmm.
we're doing. This is why it's being done,
Mm-hmm.
right? And now you have one or two choices, because mom's the one that's going to have to take care of you. When
Mm-hmm.
you reach the point you can take care of yourself, you can do whatever you want. You want to go back to Iowa? Have at it. Whatever it is you want to do, but you have a choice. You can buckle down, learn, get your education, just learn as much as you can, enjoy the ride while it's here,
Mm-hmm.
or you can get in trouble, go on drugs, run away. Just remember,
Mm-hmm.
whatever choice you make, the person that is going to impact the most is you. The person that's going
Yeah.
to hurt the most is you. Not me. Not me. So make
Yeah.
your choices now, because you're the one who's going to have to live with them and sleep with them. Oh, I tell
Yeah.
you talk about a hard conversation to have with your kids, right? And thank
No,
God they all took the
that is
first choice.
actually how my parents, especially my dad, he was so, well, I guess both of them in different ways. Um, he always talked to me as an adult, um, to the point that I thought that's how all grown-ups would talk to me, and I would
Not
get
quite the
mad.
same. Not the
I
same
would get
thing, is
mad
it?
when people would answer something kind of like in a way that I knew that wasn't really the answer, like,
Right.
you know. But no, he would always explain, like, for example, I remember, because it was like a formula that I plan on doing with my kids as well. Like, he would explain what I did wrong, how I could have done it like differently, like right. And then that, let's say, like if he had to like kind of scold at me, punish, whatever, like that he did that because he loved me. And I remember that shift because like when I was little, that last part never made sense. Like, if you love me, then just let me play, let me do, let me
And just
whatever,
let me run free, right?
but it's after you grow up that it's kind of like, okay, yeah.
And that works in business and life. It's learning the lessons. And if you can learn from other people's mistakes, you gain so much more. Rebecca, we have just we're just like going off here and just going on and on and on. We could sit here for hours,
Forever,
right?
yeah.
And it's been such a pleasure having you on the show. We definitely have got to have you back, right?
Love that.
And regardless of what we're working through and what we're doing in life, it's all about becoming that better you. So if our audience wants to make contact with you, I mean, no, you guys can, private messenger, below here, whatever. But is there a website that they can go check you out at?
Yeah, the best one is, I'm actually, given the whole coronavirus thing, I'm actually giving a free one-on-one.
Oh, okay.
So if they just go to 7digital with a C, because it comes from the 7 C's of digital marketing. So
Okay.
CEV as in Victor, EN digital dot setmore. So SETMORE.com. Then they can actually book the one-on-one, and then we'll take it from there,
Okay.
Because I really feel like in times like this, people need people.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
And so basically that's what I have done with the shift of focus into the coaching, because again, the agency's running fine and whatever, but those are projects, those are kind of things, I feel like now people need that kind of guiding hand, and sort of just a phone call,
Well,
just
it's that
like
human
whatever.
touch again.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. So that's what I'm here to do, and it's completely free, like I said. So just kind of book it at your convenience.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for sharing, and thank you so much for being on the show.
I have loved it. I have loved you, seriously. Like, so yeah, anytime that you want me back, just let me know.
Well, you know what? I'm going to hold you to that. So for now, we're going to say goodbye, and it's time to go out there to be that best you that you can be, because Rebecca and we're going to be the best we can be, right?
Yes, yes, perfect.
See you all in the next show.